ബ്രൂക്ക്ഫീൽഡ് പോലീസ് വിഭാഗത്തിൽ പടിപടിയായി ഉയർന്ന് സേവനത്തിന്റെ മികച്ച മാതൃക കാട്ടിയ ഒരു ഇന്ത്യൻ വംശജൻ കൂടിയായ ഡെപ്യൂട്ടി ചീഫ് ഓഫ് പോലീസ് മൈക്കിൾ കുരുവിളയുമായി നിഷ മാത്യൂസ് നടത്തിയ അഭിമുഖം കാണാം.
നമസ്കാരം. കൈലി TV USA ഈ സ്പെഷ്യൽ എപ്പിസോഡിലേക്ക് എല്ലാവർക്കും സ്വാഗതം. ഇന്ന് നമ്മളുടെ ഒപ്പം വളരെ ഒരു ഇമ്പോർട്ടന്റ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു ഗസ്റ്റ് ആണ് വന്നിരിക്കുന്നത്. ആദ്യത്തെ അമേരിക്കൻ മലയാളി ചീഫ് ഓഫ് പോലീസ് ഫ്രം ബ്രൂക്ക്ഫീൽഡ് ഷിക്കാഗോ ആണ് നമ്മളുടെ ഒപ്പം ജോയിൻ ചെയ്തിരിക്കുന്നത്. സോ വെൽക്കം ചീഫ് ഓഫ് പോലീസ് മൈക്ക് കുരുവില ടു കൈലി TV USA. Thank you so much for taking the time out to be with us today. I know you have a very busy schedule. അപ്പം ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് വേണ്ടി കുറച്ച് നിമിഷങ്ങൾ എടുത്തതിന് വളരെ വളരെ നന്ദിയുണ്ട്.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored. I'm still taken aback every time I get an opportunity to speak and represent for the Indian community, the Malayali community. It's my honor, and I really appreciate just being given the opportunity.
Thank you so much. And it's a joy for us to get to know you better and to also help our Malayali community here get to know you and to show all the different possibilities that Malayalis can achieve anywhere in the world. So thank you again.
Absolutely.
And law enforcement, American Malayalis, there are only about 150 Malayalis in the American law enforcement. So you are part of a very small group, right?
And growing.
And growing. Okay.
Yes.
And how do you feel about that?
Absolutely a sense of pride, a sense of, but as well as just a humility to be counted amongst this group, to be able to serve the public in this way. It's not a job for the faint of heart. It's a very difficult job and a very difficult field to be in. And so I'm so proud of my brothers and sisters, especially from the Malayali community, but all of those of us that serve in this profession, because it isn't easy. And it's a lifestyle. It's a, something, and many would of course also, I think, say it's a calling. So, yeah, and I'm blown away as I see the numbers rising too, especially now that we have kind of more formalized. It's really exciting and cool thing to see that we've got this network of support around us.
You do have to be brave. You do have to make solid decisions because once you make that decision, you have to be invested 100%. So ഞാൻ നമ്മുടെ പ്രേക്ഷകരോട് പറയട്ടെ, നമ്മുടെ like I said, Mike Kuruvilla is the first Malayali chief of police for Brookfield, Chicago. He is also the recipient of 40 under 40 award awarded by the
International Association of Chiefs of Police.
Oh,
so yeah, it was quite an honor again to be. Personally, my personality, I just don't know why I keep, but I'm thankful for the opportunity and to be honored in that way. So.
Okay, so now your journey as a law. Okay,
Yes.
So you've been in the field for 15 years now. So let's talk about your journey. How did you decide that you wanted to be a police officer? What got you here?
Especially being the son of an immigrant family, and born and raised here, I frankly didn't realize that this was even a possibility. This was not on my radar. I was always fascinated with law enforcement from being young as a child, but I didn't really think that this was something that I could pursue my earlier years. At that time, even though I'm sure there were a handful of Malayali people joining into the ranks of police work, it was also before really social media connectedness and just online connectedness the way it is today. So I think I had heard, as a kid that, oh, there's an uncle that's an officer in Chicago, and there's one in New York, and this, particularly the big cities. But again, I didn't know any of them personally. I was pretty, reserved and shy as a kid, so I didn't really know that I could, something I want to do. How do I do this? But I was fascinated with it as a kid growing up. And then as I, got into high school and college, I realized that my passions were driven to, working with people, that type of direct one-on-one contact. Initially, I had thought that my career and my purpose was going to be in social work. That's what I have my and a good dear friend of mine from Chicago, actually, someone I grew up with, that had then gotten on to Chicago Police Department, and he was one of a number of people, but one of the main ones that was like, hey, this is a real possibility if you want to pursue it. And so I started looking into it and realized that I did meet the qualifications, and it was a viable option for me. At which point I began to test, and I was very fortunate that I was able to test well and be given the opportunity to get hired on. I think I left the field of social work about 6 weeks after I got my master's degree. So I wasn't a social worker for very long, but I got to then come, and I came straight here.
Okay, but I think that certainly complements what you're doing right now, especially as the chief of police. You have moved up in the ranks, and you have certainly proved yourself, right? And that's why you are here. And having that background, especially now in the current times, I think it'll help bring a different perspective in what you do. You finished your degree in social work, and you decided that, okay, you know what, I'm going to go into law enforcement. How did your parents react?
Well, let me preface this by saying they're very proud, and they're very happy with the decisions I've made now. But at the onset, and in fairness, again, I think, this is probably rings true for many Malayali Americans. We just didn't have any context to know what kind of profession this really was and what I was getting myself into. So I think it came from a good place, but they were scared. They were just not for it. Initially, not so excited, but it grew on them, and it helped that my then fiance, now my wife, was behind me all along, and so I think that helped even for my family, my parents, to ease their tensions. I think they more or less thought, hey, she's the one stuck with him for the rest of her life, his life. So if she's okay with it, then I guess we will be too. And like I said, as the years have gone on, and not just because of rank, but just they've gotten to see what this profession is and the good that I've been able to do through it. It's a privilege that all my brothers and sisters that do this work, we get to serve the public. We get to serve our communities, our cities, to try to make some of the worst days of people's lives, some of the worst moments of people's lives, just a little bit better, to give some peace, some reprieve. It's an honor, but it's also a very heavy burden to have to carry. So I think once my family and others, around that were maybe more critical, got to see that, it really changed their outlook.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot more than tickets that officers do. Yes. So, but
most officers, if you ask them, most of them do not. That's probably one of the least desirable, pleasurable parts of the work. So it's a necessary evil, but it's probably one of the parts that they don't,
as the public, we tend to think that they get a lot of pleasure out of giving us tickets.
No, there's only no.